So, on to our last session. So, do you want to re-engage with clients? Do you want to deliver your excellent training content to them again, particularly in the room? Are you always trying to find new clients to deliver your work and you're reluctant to have them? Our guest, which we're now welcoming on, is Susan Heaton Wright. She is known as the superstar communicator and is here to talk and share top tips on how to move from digital to human communication for business success. She's delivered many virtual speeches and workshops to audiences globally over the last 2 years. Really strong supporter and advocate of CPD standards. So it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you, Susan, and to share your message with us. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Amanda. I'm absolutely delighted to be speaking today and to share top tips on how to bring the human connection into any business conversation. Now, I have to be honest with you, I did these slides last week and we want to be back in the room, and the irony that we are virtual, I'm sure everybody can have a little quiet giggle about that. But in the last 2 years, I have completely changed my business model from being a classic speaker, coach, trainer in the room to delivering virtual content to global clients, literally all over the world. And there are at least people from 85 countries who have attended my workshops, which I would never have managed to do in real life unless I was on a plane the entire time. However, I'm sure I'm not the only person who is wanting to get back in the room, and those fantastic clients that I have developed business relationships with, to move them so that they can see that I also deliver high quality content face to face. Would everybody agree with that? That's something that they want. So what we're going to cover today, I am going to share with you ways that you can build confidence when speaking to clients and prospects, including what I call old clients. And I don't mean old age-wise, but people perhaps that you haven't been working with since the pandemic started. Increasing the touch points for human connection and understanding the purpose of your conversation. So yes, I really want to be back in the room. I want to redevelop some of those contacts that I had and clients that I worked with over 2 years ago who have not been in a position to be using my services in the last 2 years. But also I am wanting to remind people that I'm doing lots of work face to face now, and those people that have been clients that I've developed in the last 2 years virtually, I want to be able to say, you know what, who's your UK contact? Those sorts of things, so I can have a conversation and move things forward there. And I've just looked at my face there. That's a classic, isn't it? I'm in mid-flow. So a little bit of background about me. My brand is Superstar Communicator, as Amanda said right at the beginning. I identified 5 key areas to be a superstar communicator. And these are 5 key skill areas that I believe and I know are essential to have great business conversations, whether it's public speaking, whether it's pitching, whether it's being in the media, whether it's in meetings, all of those conversations. And we're going to touch on 3 of those today. Audience, understanding your audience, content, and preparation. So if you're with me on this, so why should we have conversations with clients and prospects? So obviously you've had the amazing Barnaby and the amazing Amanda who have been talking about digital marketing and PR. But let's move that business relationship to the next stage where you're having a proper conversation with people. Because we can hide behind digital automations, or we can post lots of things on social media, or we can share the fact that we have been in a top quality publication, but we want to move that business forward, don't we? So I want you to think about how you could move that conversation forward, because I know from what Amanda said to me when we were discussing this particular presentation, that there are some absolutely incredible training companies that are members of CPDSO. And some of you have nailed this, that you have regular contact with your clients, but other people are trying to get new clients the whole time, but you've got a database of older clients that you could possibly reconnect with. And that makes life much easier, doesn't it? If we've already got that business relationship. So first of all, I always think of what the purpose is of you contacting people. Now, by this, let's think about who you could contact. You could contact people that you have worked with in the last year or pre-pandemic, and they haven't been in a position to have any training for you. Or it could be people that you're developing business relationships on social media, such as LinkedIn. Perhaps they've liked one of your posts or they have commented on it, and you could move across to a private message and then say, you know, shall we arrange a chat? Because that's a great way to get off digital and hiding behind tech. But let's think of some of the reasons why you might have a conversation with people. Well, you could share some news. You could share the news that you are now doing some work face to face instead of literally virtually. You could tell them that you're in the room, that you've got some new products, a new course, that you've got all of these new clients in the last 2 years. They might be really interested. Certainly there's some news that's come in for me this week. I am making sure that my clients know about that. Tell them that you're ready for business. You might have written a new book during lockdown, but it's also an opportunity for you to listen to their challenges and their specific situation. So I don't know if anybody wants to put in the chat what they think they might reach out for in a conversation, the purpose. It'd be very interesting to see what people say. So if you've got an idea, do put it in the chat and then I'll pick it up. But we've also got to think about different audiences, and Barnaby touched on this, about those people who might be decision makers, or who might be influencers, or might literally be collecting information about 3 or 4 different training companies, or it might be somebody that you have a regular business relationship with. You've already delivered work with them, you've already built up trust. You need to understand those people, what they might need from the conversation related to that. But also, we need to think about or find out a little bit more about who you're speaking to if you have arranged a call. So Andrea says, reach out and let them know you're there for them. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I did when in March 2020. And as a result of that, I created an entire new business because I listened to people and I created support content that would help them, particularly in those first few months. So thank you very much for that. So think about who you are speaking to. I mentioned about influencers or decision makers, or those people who they're not decision makers, but they might send information or introduce you to somebody who is a decision maker. But think about more than that. Whenever I am going to do have a call with anybody, I do some background research, normally on LinkedIn. I will find out where they were at university or school, where they've worked, where they live, things like that, because there might be some things that we have in common. And one of the things that we are like as human beings is that we are drawn to people like us. Now, this isn't an unconscious bias workshop, although I do deliver them quite regularly. However, the more touch points we have that are similar, it reassures the other person. So, for example, 2 years ago, I was pitching for some work with one of the big 4 accountancy companies. And I did some research like this, and it turned out that the woman that I was scheduled to speak to had been at Tulane University in New Orleans, a small private university. And it happened that my uncle had been the head of neurology back in the 1970s, admittedly. But the first thing that I said to her was, this is really weird. I've noticed you were at Tulane University. My uncle taught there in the 1970s. How? We had something in common. And there were other touch points like that. And of course, I did get the work. I'm sure that there were other reasons too, but it was a reassurance with that. So also with these conversations that you have, as with any presentation or public speaking that you do, you need to think about what's in it for them, the audience. Why should they be interested in the conversation? Why should they be interested in spending 15 minutes out of their busy schedule speaking with you? So I've got this what's in it for them grid focusing on the audience, not about me, what I'm going to say, but about them. So of course, one of these is about us. What do you want out of the conversation? What do I want out of the conversation if I arrange to have a call with one of my prospective clients? Then the other 3 are related to them. What's in it for them? What could they benefit from the conversation that could lead to them either booking me to do a lunch and learn, a masterclass, a workshop, or even individual coaching with some of their team. So what do I want you, the audience, to get out of the conversation? And then the other 2 are, what do you want them to get out of the conversation professionally and personally? So if we relate it to this particular topic that I'm talking about, what do I want out of the conversation? Well, I want you to go away with some top tips, some ideas, and some confidence around arranging human conversations and calls so that you can move your business forward. What do I want you to get out of it? That you get more bookings, that you're busy, that you are in the front of the room, so that you send me photographs of waving with a team of people that you are training face to face or in a hybrid way. So what's in it for the person that you're speaking to, your audience professionally? Well, it could be that there is a particular challenge that your audience has. It could be that they have been onboarding new members of staff during the pandemic and people haven't met each other, or that some of the more junior members of the team haven't developed some of the skills that you would pick up if you were in the office. And this would solve a problem with the training and developing their skill set in the office. And what's for the audience or the person you're speaking to personally? Well, it could be that if the productivity is increased in the team or within the department, then the person that I'm speaking to is going to get a bonus, which could mean nice holiday, new kitchen, new car. That's all lovely, isn't it? Okay. So let's get talking. Let's think about not just sending out random proposals or, hi, I thought you might be interested in what I do, blah, and send it out. Let's see if we can generate proper conversations. Now, one of the things that I have found over the years is that sometimes people contact me and say, could you send me a proposal for, or what's the price you charge for presentation skills, or something like that. Stop there. Before you send anything out, what do you want me to do? I want you to say, love to send you some information, but could we have a quick chat first? Or if there's a telephone number on their signature, pick up the phone straight away. Have that conversation, really understand what it is they are wanting so that you can tweak your proposal, do a one that is bespoke to them. It could be that, in fact, they are just fishing around for the cheapest. I would say this with International Women's Day, I'm afraid to say. I've been very busy in the last few weeks delivering virtual speeches to companies all over the world. But I've also had lots of requests. And when I say, let's arrange a phone call, then we can discuss the audience, but also the fee. You'd be amazed at the number of people who don't respond to that. It's great because it has filtered out time wasters. All right, so let's think about what you are going to say. And I know that there are lots of people that the thing they worry about most is, but what am I going to say? What's going to happen? This is a conversation, but there are some things that you can do to help you feel a lot more confident. Now, right at the beginning, I said about what's the purpose of you having the conversation. So you might have in your mind that you have just published a new book and you'd love to be able to send a copy. And by the way, how are things going? The book could be of real interest to you because I'm helping you to develop these skills for your staff. It could be that you have already worked out who you're going to speak to. You see when you last delivered some work for them, and the opening thing that you say is, I can't believe it's over 2 years since we were working together. But also think about the start of what you're going to say. It might be that you have a small talk faff, a couple of things that are related to the last conversation that you had, or I can't believe that it's 5 years since we worked together, all things like that. Then you need to be focused. And I believe that it's very, very important to have a very, very clear sentence to start the conversation. It not only demonstrates to the people that you're speaking to that we're now on business rather than small talk, but also it will demonstrate to them what you want to talk about. So I would always put, when you are planning this conversation with a specific person, what is the first thing that I'm going to say in a business context? It could be, it's 2.5 years since we worked together, and I wanted to let you know that we have some new courses that we are now delivering face to face. Could we have a chat about that? I'm sure that there are other examples that you could give that are relevant to your business. But you need to spend more time listening, because this is an opportunity for you to find out what's going on in their business. You might find out that they are doing a lot of recruitment, so they are going to need to have some onboard training. It could be that there has been a gap in the training for the last 2 years, and there are some key skills that are required. One of my clients, for example, she had a conversation with me. We managed it face to face. And she told me that one of the problems that they have is that they've onboarded lots and lots of people. They're doing more delegation, but the delegation conversations are not very effective. So people that have work delegated to them are confused and productivity has gone down. That was gold dust to me. And as a result of that, I was able to come back and not only ask more questions related to that. When I went and pitched for it and did a proper proposal, I was able to quote some of those examples that she had cited to make it very personalized. So remember that the conversation isn't about you talking all the time, it's about listening and getting lots of information. I am also a great believer in stories or case studies, as they would be in this situation. Stories can be more elaborate, but case studies can be a very quick way of you demonstrating that you understand what the problem is and that you have done a similar piece of work for another client. So I always recommend my clients have 3 or 4 case studies in their back pocket, and that they create a library of case studies or stories so that when they're talking to different people, they can say, oh, that's really interesting. Last year I worked with X company and they do a similar thing to you, although they're based in Australia, and this is what we did for them. So here's a very, very simple storyboard. Some people would call it a star, but since I'm the superstar communicator, which has 5 points, and the star has only 4, I use this. So once upon a time, I'm setting the scene. I'm saying who the client is or which industry they are in. Suddenly, I'm sharing what the challenge was. And then this is how we help them. Happily ever after, as a result of that, happy client, more productivity. Think about some stories or some situations where you have helped clients. If you are focused on one particular industry, it's almost going to be easier because it's going to be repeat stories that are going to resonate with the particular person that you're speaking with. But if it's a variety, try and compartmentalize those so that you have those available in your mind. Maybe write on a post-it note or something to remind you that you can use those to demonstrate your credibility and to share that you understand. Why are stories so interesting? Why are they so useful? This is one of the workshops that in fact I do. There is an awful lot around the brain and remembering how people make you feel and the emotions around that. And it's easy for people to remember that story rather than something very complicated, particularly something technical. So wrapping around a case study or a story around something more complex makes it easier for the other person to understand and remember it. So right at the end of the conversation, we can all get into the trap of having what I call a sort of faff at the end without a call to action. Now, what I mean by a call to action is, what do you want the other person to do? Or what are you going to tell them that you are going to do? Because otherwise it's going to be a missed opportunity. And if you've had the guts or you've got the impetus to arrange to have a call or arrange to have a face-to-face meeting, you want to make the most of it. So here are some examples of call to action. So I will send a proposal, but make sure that you've got a date to follow up and discuss the proposal. So you could say, I will send you a proposal, and if we could get a date in the diary for next week, and I'll send you an invite, we can discuss whether this is what you want. Actually setting a date in the diary to deliver some work. But what about those people that, in fact, there's no work, but you could actually, no work at the moment and no need for what you do? You could say, well, shall we put something in the diary for 6 months' time? Or shall I contact you in 6 months' time? We can have another chat to see if you do have any need. But it could be that this person isn't a decision maker, and the call to action could be, so please could you introduce me to X or Y, and so I can have a discussion with them. Any other ideas, please share in the chat. So, you've won the business, yes! Now, so often, and there are people that I have worked with, where there is a trick missing, because this is a whole new set of conversations, business conversations and opportunities for you to increase the touch points and build a business relationship that is more than a one-off, because we want repeat business and we want referrals. So I want you to start thinking about this whole business, this whole journey, which includes delivery and post-delivery of the training that you're wanting to do, because you want to build long-term business relationships. It is cheaper for you to have repeat business and referrals than always to have to market for new business. So here are some activities that I do, and one or two of these things I've actually done with CPDSO. In the contract that I have, or the agreement, we agreed that there'll be a pre-meeting and a post-training meeting. You could even organise those at the time so that you've already got them in the diary booked. Please, please, please avoid saying, please download it from my website and send a link. So in the case of me being a speaker, some of my other colleagues in the speaking world, they have a page where people can download a biography, photographs, things like that can be shared. I don't do that, because that's another opportunity for me to send something back, or get my VA to send something back, and it be another touch point. In my contract, I also have a clause that says that I'm really, really proud to work with you, and I would love to have permission to be able to shout about the event afterwards on LinkedIn and share it with my clients. There is only one client I've ever had, and it was a US company this year, that actually, even before I sent the contract out, they said they got me to sign an NDA for whatever reason. But on the whole, people are really delighted with this, and it's a boost for them as well. Also agree, and if I was in the room, believe me, I would be getting my superstar communicator star out and getting you to have photos. Agree that there can be some photos taken. Send a call sheet to confirm details. So I send that a few days before to say when I'm going to arrive, what my mobile number is, confirming the time and the date, obviously, and the venue. It's another excuse to contact them and reassure them that you are going to be there, because not everybody has booked trainers or speakers before, and so it's going to be nerve-wracking for some people. We want to reassure them and arrive early. Believe me, that's the one of the most important things to do. So please, 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 when you have delivered your work, please avoid dialogue ending with the invoice and a feedback form. Guess what? On numerous occasions, I have bought services or attended events, and this has been the only thing that I've had. I've had the invoice, and no thank you, and please can you give me some feedback? Please can you review? And you sort of think, well, which is a real shame, and it's a missed opportunity. Of course, you want to have feedback, and you want to have feedback from the attendees because you want to have some post-training activity so you can have a discussion with people. So here is a photograph that I took, pre-pandemic, but you will see that I did a photograph of people with their CPD certificates. We had a big session delivering them out, and it was really, really good fun. And I got them to write little quotes for me. And as a result of that, I was able to present that to the people afterwards. So as I mentioned earlier on, I have in my contract to have either a face-to-face or a virtual call. And this is an opportunity for you to show credibility even more. So activities at the meeting, I would write a case study and report of the training that I've done and observations of the training. It might be that it's quite obvious that there needs to be more support in a particular area. But having written that case study up, I can then get permission from them to share that, even if they want the name of the company taken out. I always do some measurement in any training right at the beginning and the end to share the impact of the training. I could discuss further ways to help them. I also create a photo album of the training, or if I'm speaking like I'm speaking last week, or if I had been face-to-face here today, photographs and quotes that people said, so that they have got a visual representation of the event. Ask those things like, how can I help you? What else could we do for you? Or is this something that we could do annually? Do you know anybody else who would be interested in our work? Are there any referrals you could do? People in other departments? Ask for testimonials, LinkedIn and Google Business. Book a time to have another conversation in the future. It might sound icky, but believe me, when you're in the conversation, these are really, really easy things to include, particularly if you have provided them with good quality training, which I know you have, a great case study, and these things like those photographs, which are fun. So before we finish, I'd like you to put in the chat, if you wish, what's the first action from today that you will do and implement into your business conversations to make them human? I'd love to see what you're going to put. So everyone's gone quiet.
Everyone has gone a little quiet.
I bet half of the people have left.
Well, I think that you've drawn on some really important points there, Susan. I mean, we can't ever emphasize enough the critical importance of having a case study to refer to that's either industry specific or topic specific. And I really like the storyboard idea with the once upon a time and kind of what the ending is from there. And I think, you know, that is such a good way of segmenting that case study down and what the happily ever after was, what that business impact was. I think that's a really, really lovely technique to use, because sometimes it can be hard to structure it, to you know, not make it too descriptive, etc. So absolutely. I think that's great.
They don't need to go, it doesn't need to be in much depth. And the thing is that if they're interested or they need more information, they will ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's providing proof, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And that's what you need. You know, when we come back to thinking about this digital distrust and elevating yourself in terms of standing out from the crowd, promoting your credibility, promoting your experience, it's all about, you know, creating that social proof, those testimonials and that case study. And then as Barnaby and Amanda and you talked about, you know, wrapping that into the overall relationship and kind of business experience so that every single touch point is covered off. I also really liked, and I think this is a really good piece of advice for all of our face-to-face trainers and coaches, which was agreeing in the contract for a couple of things. One, for that post-training meeting. I think that is a really obvious thing, but it's really, you know, it's a reason to be in touch, to get yourself back in the building if that's, you know, if it's physical or etc., or to carry on that conversation. To be able to use that particular instance as a case study, which we've just talked about, but, you know, making sure that it's just something that you can do, you don't even have to discuss it. And photos as well of the certificates. We know this certificate ceremony is often, you know, really sort of celebrated, although it, you know, for some people they don't necessarily think that they'd want to be presented with a certificate in the UK. Certainly, you know, it does bring that feeling of togetherness through. So I think, you know, there's some really interesting and important points there, particularly when it comes to contracts and kind of just agreeing those levels of conversations. So has anybody got anything for Susan at the moment? It's all gone a little bit quiet.
I know. So I know that there were a couple of things here. Andreas, very good presentation. Thank you. So thank you. Case studies are really important. I agree. Are we able to have the slides from today? Yes.
Yeah, we'll be circulating the slides and the recording later on this week. So Susan, if you could make one recommendation for our providers, for our trainers, coaches, and online educators, one recommendation, one thing that they can do in their communication to be a superstar communicator, what would it be?
Really understand who you're speaking to and the purpose of you speaking.
Okay. And is that just as straightforward as doing some background checks and seeing if there's anything in common, or is there anything else that you'd recommend?
Well, I think that you've got to understand the purpose of you speaking to them. You might not have anything that's relevant to a particular person, and then you're wasting your time and their time.
Yeah, that's true.
So
you
can eliminate. Rather like when I have that filter when people say, "Oh, can you come and speak at my International Women's Day?" And when I say, "Yeah, we can discuss the fee," and
that's important.
You filtered it. You filtered it for them.
Yeah, that's good to take care. And do you have any, sometimes a question I ask our speakers, do you have any books that you would personally recommend? Any podcasts that you listen to or audio sources that you think, you know, this is something that you could share amongst the trainer and coaches community? Well,
I do have my own podcast. In fact, I did have one more slide before you jumped in.
Sorry.
It doesn't matter, no one died. But I have my own podcast, Superstar Communicator, and there are lots of episodes on different aspects of human spoken communication that might be of value. There are definitely a couple on brief speaking, for example. Now, I know Amanda talked about the 8-word, I call it 8-word story. And there are 2 podcasts about brief speaking. There's one about storytelling and the whole neuroscience behind it, because people often don't realize that it's a lot more powerful than just sharing your story. But I would say that. Also, thinking about books that I often recommend, I really like Joe McCormack, and in fact I've interviewed him a couple of times. He's written a book called Brief.
Okay.
And I would also say, I'm looking at my books, TED Talks by Chris Anderson. And what he does, one of the clever things is that the TED Talks are no longer 45-minute to 1 hour keynotes. They're condensed into 15 minutes. And more speeches and presentations. And as we know, training is more about getting other people to speak and share their ideas. And so using some of the things that Chris talks about, condensing, having really good stories that are memorable, some hooks, would be of genuine interest to many people on conversations, because it can be related to that. I'm writing my own book at the moment.
That's good to know. Thank you so much. Is there any other areas that you'd like to cover off, Susan?
Yeah, the only thing that I was going to say was, let me share the last slide, which hopefully it will come up there. And that is, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. There's only one Susan Heaton Wright. Make sure you do Heaton Wright, because the Susan Heaton looks after dogs. Twitter, Instagram, and my podcast. And you know what? We should all be asking for testimonials. So if anyone feels free to do a testimonial for me, fantastic.
Thank you so much, Susan. Well, thank you to all of you for joining us and staying with us this afternoon. Very welcome to have feedback in the chat now for just a few minutes while we close off. This has been our first member event with a series of sessions running across an afternoon, and it seems to have been enormously successful. We'll be circulating the slides and the recording, but also a feedback questionnaire as well, to just understand, how we can make sure that this is of value to you, and ensuring that going forward. For me, the key takeouts today, just sort of reflecting back across my notes, is from Barnaby's conversation about building your personal brand. I thought it was really interesting when he mentioned it's about capturing the psychographic profile, not the demographic profile. What are the customers thinking and feeling? And being clear that the demographics are only for a business plan, it's the psychographic. And that 57%, I think he mentioned, of people are ready to buy from the moment they look at your organisation or your business or you as an individual. They're already kind of halfway there, and it's how you're going to tip them over. And of course, that point again, that your brand isn't your branding. They're two different things to think about that. Amanda Fitzgerald, I think, we've talked about here, Susan, you've reaffirmed it, the nail it in 8, or the 8-word story. That's so critical to being able to summarize what you do. And I would very much recommend that you take Amanda up on her PR Power Hour. She's got some great knowledge, some great insights, and certainly a lot of different journalistic contacts as well. And then finally, Susan, just again reflecting on yours, the idea of creating this storyboard testimonials once upon a time is fantastic, and having a relook at that training contract and trying to build more clauses into it that basically facilitate communication. So a big thank you to everybody for this afternoon. We'll be in touch with you soon. Have a good afternoon, have a good evening, and we'll look forward to welcoming you to another event in another couple of months. So take care, everybody. Good night and good evening. Bye-bye.